All right, so we are recording right now, and as usual, same process, services. I can look for Cloudshell. in Northern Virginia. And let me see if, oh, okay, so all right, actually, this is interesting. So I have a couple of files here. So one of the things to think about, and I'm going to say this out loud just so you guys can have it in your notes and something to think about. So almost everything in the cloud costs money somewhere. So there are very few things, almost nothing is free. So even if you create anything, it has to be stored somewhere. So if you create a file, that file has to be stored somewhere. If it's not on your home computer, it's on the cloud, and in the cloud, it's going to be put someplace and it's going to incur a cost. Usually something very small, like 1 penny a month per, like a kilobyte or something like that. So we have a few files. This one, I've created these before. Get security groups, these three. I could probably delete them and we'll save like a penny, but I just did want to bring that up. I was thinking about where that 1 penny came from, and I should remember that I created these 3 files. So it's like 1 penny a month for these 3 files. So that might not make any sense, but the point I'm making, the thing to consider is that no matter what you create in the cloud, it might not seem obvious, but to be aware of what you're creating and where the cost comes in. So I showed on the EC2 before, a lot of the resources were set to 0, which is fine, which is what you want, except for stuff that you're going to be using over and over again. There are a few things they'll tell you don't cost anything. But if I had created a lot of files if you're using Cloudshell and you create a lot of files in Cloudshell, over time, that's going to cost some money. It might not be a lot, like I said, if you don't keep a lot of files there, but if you start using Cloudshell to keep a bunch of files, so because Cloudshell won't erase anything by itself, you have to erase erase whatever it is that you want to use. So that's the point I'm making behind that. So that's one of the things I was looking at. I was like, why is it even 1 penny? Because everything else was set to 0. But all right. So let me try this one. We'll try another complicated example, but not too complicated, so that we can at least I can walk through. Yeah, this one actually I think will be a good one. So yeah, let's try this one. And something else I'm going to talk about briefly, but it's also important to know because it's used all over the place. So I'm going to go on this website. It's called Github. And yeah, this one might be a good example to use as well. So I'm going to talk about, I talked about a few websites before. There's one called GitHub. And GitHub is where a lot of files are stored. And it's I pay about $20 a month, something like that, $20 a month to use GitHub. And you can put almost as many files as you want. You can use a lot of files on it. But GitHub is a good place for people to store code. And where that might be useful is that if you're looking to understand code or to look at code, it might make sense to go into GitHub and see some that you're interested in. So if you're interested in images, you can go to github.com, search images, and you'll see code about images. And it's pretty much free. And most of the stuff is public. So that what that means is that people let you use the code. That part is kind of free. Like people let you use the code for free because there's so much of it. So keeping code a secret now most of the time doesn't make any sense because the code is so complicated and there are so many code files, it's impossible for one person to know everything. It's just not possible. So what's happened is that they've created these services, this system called Git. I'm going to show the command here, and we're actually, yeah, so Git. So I can type here Git, Git. It sounds like you're, and I've talked about this before. Actually, I remember we talked about this before, but it's a good tool to know on top of other things like Python and AWS as a language. So Git is a place for you to store files, and it's a better place to store files that you're going to use for a long time. And it's some place that you can share files as well, because if somebody goes on vacation and someone else needs to access those files, they need a system to that they can use. So that's really the motivation behind something like Git. So if you look at this, this is github.com, this website, and I have this command called git. So if I say something like, for example, it says help, right? So I can say git help. All right, so now I can see what types of commands I can do. They're not, yeah, it's probably like, yeah, less than 50 type of commands. So I use, the ones I use a lot, I use add, I use commits, I use clone, and I use push. So for me, the stuff that I do on average, out of like 50 commands, maybe, I don't know, probably maybe 40. No, it looks like 50. I use about 4 of them every day, but there are a lot more status, things like that. So it might be good to just, I'll send a link on what Git is, and maybe see if I can find a video I can send to you guys as well. But it's like another tool that's used everywhere. So if you're working in this business, you do have to understand how Git as a website, you can go to a website, and there are a lot of places you can go, but this is the main one. That's one. And 2, how do you access it? So you need 2 things. You need files and you need tools to access the files. So the files are here, and the way you get them is here. So I'm going to show something. Do this right here. I hope I don't need to use too many of these, because this might be a big one. I can do it right here. So I'm going to use this command. So I have this git, and this will work on Mac. It doesn't matter, Macintosh, or works on Windows as well. But so the fact that you have a PC means that you can use these tools. I'm more familiar with the PCs, but even on a Mac, you can still do the same thing. So one of the things that we could talk about is, we did this before with Python, but now we should probably do it as well with Git. So, all right, so I'm going to use a command. So I said git help, because I want to know what I can do. I want to know what I can do. So in this case, I want to use clone. So let me go here and try this. So this is public. So all this information is pretty, like I said, there's so many files here. There's like probably close to 1 million files just here in one place, and nobody knows all of it. So there's this guy here. This could be you. There's this guy here, David Souther, who worked on a lot of this stuff. He's not the only one, but he's one of the main people. And yeah, you can see. And so this is what I'm trying to show you. This is what I'm trying to show you. So there's a website, and a lot of you use social media, right? So a lot of you use social media, and you can see other people on social media. You can see what they've contributed or posted or something like that. This is something like that for code, though. But in this case, you're using code for different programming languages. The ones I care about for now are mostly Python, but there are other ones I've talked about before. Yeah, but Python's a big one. Where is Java is another one. So you can you can actually create your own account. You can create your own account on this website and see the files that people are using. And you don't have to create an account, but if you're trying to make a lot of contributions, you have to log in, just like anything else. Like you can go on a website, like whatever, Twitter, you can see some of the information, but if you want to write something on Twitter, you need an account. So you can see some stuff if you're just looking at it, but if you're trying to write that information, then you need an account. So I'm not saying anything that's really crazy. It's just applied in a different place. In the place we're here, so I want to use this example, and I want this information. So I want to go to this website. It's online, and let me try this. This is going to be a big file. It might take a little while it might take like a minute to download all this. But it's going to be easier. So you see this is cloning into, so it's downloading this information. So right now it's telling me there are 186,575 files, right? So on this page on the website, and it's about 14%. And I'm going to, yeah, 50%. So if it's 80%, so we're pretty close, probably 250. So 221. All right. So there are 186,575 different objects. That means how many people? So 337 people. All right. So this just to put together kind of what's happening. So there are 337 people. So everybody knows English. Contribution, right? It's the Creole way. And contributors, you know what that means? Somebody who adds. So there are 337 people who worked on this particular project. This is a whole project. And they made some change. They did something. So if you want access to this, so you can go in and you can join, get access to the same information. So here, for example, Python. So I just downloaded a whole bunch of, I do have an account, but I'm not logged in right now. I have another account for this one. All right, cool. So now I said, I want this. So now I can go into this folder. And I did this other command because I wanted to see who I was in AWS. So right now, all right, I'll probably have to get rid of that part. Shoot. But it doesn't matter. I also have a budget on this as well, so our costs don't go crazy. And we go back here. So what I'm trying to put together is, there's a website, github.com. All right, that's one. It has a lot of big companies use it. So I want you to actually go to this website. This is one of the things, github.com. There are a lot of big companies that use it. My company uses it. Every company I've worked in for like the past 8 years now uses something like this. So either GitHub, the other one is the other one that I use a lot is GitLab. So that does the same thing. It does the same thing, basically. They all do the same thing. GitHub, these companies use it, right? These are big companies. These are all like multi-billion-dollar companies. And what is it used for is for them to put their files. Why are they putting their files there is because if you're working on a team, you want the team to be able to access information, even if people go on vacation or if they quit or somebody's they're for whatever reason, it almost doesn't matter. And you can use other things. It's mostly used for code. That's what it's really well known for, is used for code. But you can use it for any document, really. You can use it for any document. And some people do use it for other documents. So I just want to show this website, github.com. There are other ones, GitLab. There's BitLocker, right? That's like 3 of them already. But this one I want to show. Why do I want to show it? The reason why I want to show it is because I want to access these files. Why do I want to, why do I want to use these files is because I want to use an example, but I don't want to have to rewrite everything. All right. I don't want to have to rewrite everything. So that's kind of like the whole point of using things like that. So if I had to retype all this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think that's 7 files. And then a test, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So that's 12 files that I would have to retype. That might be too much work. What I can do instead is I can take the code, and like I said, this is pretty much free. Like if it's online, then you can access it and then you can change it and you can use it. And the other thing I'll add is this is the lesson. This is what you're supposed to get out of what I'm saying. So what you're supposed to get out of it is the way the industry works now, the way it is on AWS and Azure, the way the business works right now, the way it has to work is there's just too much for any one person to know everything. So for you'll have to work in a team. You'll have to work with other people. You have to. You might have one part that you do by yourself, for a bit, but at some point you have to get with other people, and you have to figure out how you're going to come together, right? So, there's the Canal project. That's a bunch of people working together. It's impossible, or it would take like 100 years, one person to build everything. Just drop my camera. But it's gonna be okay. But so the point I'm making is that you have all these different people working on it. Some of them will work there the entire time. Some people will be there for like a week or a month or a year, and then they'll go off and do something else. But no matter what happens, you still need that information to still be there. So if somebody quits, you don't want this to disappear. You want it to still be there. Or if somebody wants to go do something else, or they're done with the project, you might have to come back to it 3 years later, and somebody has to look at it. So that's the point I'm trying to make. So you can go to this website. I'm actually going to include it in the link. Just might be something just to. It's going to seem complicated, but like I said, if for these type of tools, who else is online? Well, that's why I'm recording. So it looks like we don't have them. For these type of tools, you're going to see these tools all over the place. So what I'm trying to get you to, well, I'm trying to turn it in part, is that just like if you're a carpenter or if you worked in construction, there's some tools you're going to see everywhere. No matter which house you go to, which building, you're going to see some tools. You're going to see a ladder, you're going to see a hammer, you're going to see a saw, you're going to see some safety goggles, you're going to see this stuff no matter what. So if you are doing anything with technology, programming, you have to know something like this. GitHub. I think this is the biggest one. There are other ones, like I said, there's a few other ones, but this is the biggest one. So you have to get comfortable also with how do I use it, right? How do I use it? So let me try something here. So I'm going to do this example since looks like the connection dropped. So I'm going to use this. All right, I'm going to use this example. So if you notice, here is the same thing as here, right? This part right here. So online, all I'm saying is that I'm putting the same files that are online, now they're on my machine. That's all I'm saying. You gotta get comfortable with that. So I'm gonna run a command and see if I can remember this part. So I want to install these 3. Hopefully this one doesn't give me a hit. So there's a file called requirements.txt, right? Now, what does that mean? It means that I'm going to run the command, and what it's going to do is going to add some other information that I need. So requirements, just like the English word for requirements, so that you need. So sometimes I want to install something, and I'm going to need to get other parts. So if you're going to try and build a building, you might not have all the tools directly in front of you. You might not have it. Maybe somebody sends you a list of other tools that you have to get. So there's the same thing when you're writing code in Python specifically, or programming languages. Sometimes you don't have all the pieces, so you need other stuff. So let me run this one. And if it runs into any problems, I'll see if we can figure it out. All right, so it's downloading. So there's some other stuff that I needed. And all right, so we're in luck. So what have I always said? I said, all right, so this is green. Now this is red, but nothing bad happened. It's just for information. So it's telling me how fast it downloaded everything. This is yellow. It's usually a warning, but we're okay for now. And it says successfully did this. All right, let me do this too. It might not let me do this. I don't need to do this right now, but if I can, I'll do it, so I don't have to think about this later on. All right, so it's going to do another update. Hopefully it doesn't break anything. Usually it won't. So I'm running these updates, right? Because we're talking about the internet and the cloud and technology, and stuff changes all the time. So if you do something at Friday morning, something might have changed by Saturday. That's just what happened. So I need this information because it was missing, right? So it downloaded. So I needed this one. I needed, and there was one more. Double check this right here. Okay, I already had this. This one I already had. So, and the other thing I'm going to show, like I said, it's sometimes interesting to see the like who's doing what. So this is something that you could follow to kind of understand, okay, what's happening? How are people working together in teams? How do they come together? How does this work? So this is another file, another part of GitHub. If I want to see who worked on something, right? So they call it blame. It's a joke. It's a joke, but it's like if I want to blame somebody, like who did this, then you look and see who did it. Let me go to another file here. Yeah, so this one, okay, so 3 people worked on this one, and you can see what they did. So this is actually a really good system. It's complicated only because it's new, but if you look at it, it becomes a lot simpler. You can see what people are doing. You can actually see faces, well, see names at least. Sometimes you don't see a face, but this type of project, they usually put their face on it, and you can see what people are adding, what they're changing. So I'm using what they're doing. And let me close this one right here. There's this. This is actually a pretty good example. So we're going to try and run this one. And then, all right, let's try and run it. Some of it might not work. And I'm going to make sure that everything is done at the end. We got to make sure that it's nothing crazy. But for example, let me go through some of the files here. So if you see here on my, guys, bring it back in. Thank you. And you see here, I have a set of files. I have a set of files here, right? I have a set of files, right? Just same, still Python. It's just language. Very detailed language, just like English or just like Creole, but it's still a language. So I have this set of files, right? Close this. And I have those same files here. Same files. So the only one that, so some of this might not work, but that's okay. So we're gonna see which ones do and which ones don't. Yeah, and it warns you too. So this is a caution. And this is gonna generate some charges. It's gonna be pretty quick since we're not gonna run it for too long. But I do want to see this actually run. So this is the important part. Yeah, so it's going to do everything. It's going to build, show, and then destroy. All right, so this is going to be interesting. Let's do this. So now what happened? So what am I doing? So I'm going to go on a project that a lot of people have worked on, right? So remember I said for this one, I said 337 people worked on it, right? This being, look at all these files. So if you're, I don't know too much about Macs, but for PCs, you have a folder structure like this, right? It shows you all the files. These are the different languages that could be used. We care about Python. So all these people worked on this project. I want to use some parts of the project. I don't want to use everything. Right? It's too much. But I do want to use this particular one. So there's other examples like, so here's Python, there's this one. This one might be another good one to try out. Let's see what this one says. So it's like ask a question, give an answer type of thing. So that one doesn't have a name, so I'm not gonna touch that one. That one might take more work than I want. This is a great example here. This shows like almost all the, shows almost all, not all of them, but a lot of the AWS services in EC2. So STS, SQS, SNS, SES. So, all right, so for example, in this example code, so particularly me concerned, so what I would like you guys to do is to actually go to the website. I'm going to put the link here, and I'll also put this in the chat. But to go in and start clicking around, like the same places I'm showing, just so you can see what I'm talking about. So, like I say, it's not magic, right? There are real people working on this, and you could do this too. So you have access to the same information they do, the same, right? So they're working on this, and you can look at it too. So here, a lot of different examples for the different services. So for example, so last week I talked about, or last time I talked about IAM, right? And this might be one of this is another one I can use. Yeah, this one this actually I might just use those going forward. So this is a lot of scenarios. I wish I had more time. I just run through all of them, but that's not gonna. But my whole point is that, so last time, if you look at the last video, you really need to look at the last video. I did a basic example of using IAM. Go here. So last time I showed you guys in the last video using IAM, right? And here on, whoops. Yeah, so last time I talked about IAM, and using this service to control users. And you also have code that you could write or use that also shows like the different things that you can do. So this is a lot. So I talked about attach a policy, create a policy, create a role. So these are things that we showed before. This is if you understand this will save you a lot of work. So people who do this for a living, this is the kind of things that you do all day. All right, so I want to run this example specifically. So let's run this one. So it's going to do it's going to run a lot. It actually might run for a while. And then we can talk about what's happening in the background. So that should have worked. I'm going to go back here. So this is mostly green here. So most of what I was looking for happened. So let me run this right here. Oops. See what happens. All right, so I'm going to run this example Python. When I run this code, I want to do all the actions. So if I go back and look at the website where I got the files, right? So actually, let me do this. Let me split it up. Split it up. Let me do this one. Let's do the first one. Let's do a deploy. So this is going to create a DynamoDB table. So let's go look at, so it says it's creating it. So it's working on creating it. So let's look at Cloudshell right here. So it hasn't started yet. The table is, oh, okay, it did. All right, so it just created a table. So it says creating this table here. So info, creating this table. And if I go online to the console, DynamoDB. So what I'm trying to show right here is that it's doing what it says it's doing. So I can type in this window what I want to create, and then go to a see, yeah, it's doing all right. And so some of this stuff. All right, so that one failed, which is fine. I don't want to create something here, so let me do this. So the ones that worked, let me show you a few things. So I'm sure a few things, we can take like a break until 11:05, do like a 10-minute break. So a few things that got created. So this is what the lesson is about. This is what you should take from what I've been talking about. There's a website called Github. That website has files. You can use those files to do a lot of things. In this case, use on AWS. What can you do on AWS? You can create things that you can use. Websites, social media, almost anything you can do on a computer online, you can do it in AWS. I'm running these Python scripts to create stuff in AWS. So I'm going to show stuff that's already been created. So this one, so any place you see created. So if I go to EC2, should be another key, so there should be two, so that's two, yep. If I go to IAM again, I can see the policy I just created, right? And then, so you can see all the resources, right? That's really the whole point of what I'm showing right now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to actually destroy, and then said all this stuff costs money. You don't want to. So this is going to clean up the resources. So this part is very important. So I created some stuff. Not everything's going to cost a lot of money, but nothing is free, nothing is cheap. Some things are lower than cost than some other things. So now it's all right. Stuff that it didn't create, it just says nothing to do, nothing to do. Stuff it did create, this is not going to cost money, this is not going to cost money, this is not going to cost money. That's not going to cost money. This will cost money. So it's good that it's going to delete this other side of it. So it's 10:55. We can start back up again. I'm going to pause the video. Take it up again at 11:05. Pause recording. And I'm going to pause my audio. So again, to reiterate, the relevant points what I'm talking about today is connecting other pieces. So talk about AWS online. And actually, let me make sure the resources are gone. All right, so a lot of that stuff is gone. I'm going to take this off. Actually, I'm not sharing right now. What? No, actually, no, it's not true. I am sharing. So I'm going to take this off screen for a second because I need to check something. I want to show the which screen. There, cool. Sharing the screen that I want to share. All right, so what happened? So what happened was yeah, my microphone was low. Pardon me. Pardon me. Pardon me. Pardon me. All right, testing. It's still kind of low. Do a microphone check real quick. Test. Yeah. Test. Okay. All right. Levels look low on my end, but I guess the microphone is okay. So I want to check something as far as costs. There's a budget, but I want to change the budget a little bit. I want to change something else. See if I can show this without putting any other information out. So give me a minute, because I just want to see if there's a good screen to show how cost gets is shown right now. All right, I'm going to change this budget around. Cool. All right, just change the budget, but I also want to show, let's see if I can see it. This might be helpful, but I really want to see if anything's been created. All right, so that's deleted. Let me show. I'm gonna run that command again. All right, so this was deleted. I think that was the only thing that would cost money. And let me run. I'm gonna run it again. So I want to destroy. Destroy, of course, means to remove. So I'm going to run destroy again. It says nothing to do, 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 nothing to do. Nothing. Okay, so what just happened? So I created something. I want to make sure it doesn't keep running. And then I want to destroy it. Why do I want to destroy it? Because you have to be very cost sensitive, cost aware when you're using any resource. So you're at home, you don't leave the lights on if you're not inside the house. You don't leave the water running when it's not being used. Why? Because even though you don't see it immediately in front of you, that water is being used somewhere, and that water is going to be costing money somewhere. So that's where I'm trying to show. So create a resource and then remove the resource. That's a discipline that is incredibly necessary. So I can't emphasize this enough. I remember I was on a project that wasn't supposed to cost money like that, maybe $400 or $500 a month, and it ended up being like $10,000, which is crazy. For something that should have cost like four or 500 bucks a month. So let's see, maybe there's another good example. But I want to use one that's not. I want to use one that's not. I'm just going through some of these examples here. So this might be a good thing to look at as well, to kind of, kind of just see what's out there and then see how you might be able to use it. So this one, it's actually a good one. It's actually a good one. I'm going to go click on this one. It's not going to be obvious why this one's good, but I'm going to talk about the way that I'm talking about some deep stuff here. But what I want to talk about or describe specifically was in AWS, to protect what I was just talking about, you do need to have security. And one of the ways it does security, a good security example, is kind of like what I was talking about earlier. So bring this up. So this is talking about security. So you've heard me talk about the key pair, the keys. Right? It doesn't cost anything because you need it, and you can have a lot of them. This is one of the things that they don't charge you for because it almost doesn't make sense. It's not a big file, and you need that to do other things. So they don't charge you to use it. They don't charge you to have it, but if you need to use it anywhere, then it's going to cost money. So that means that's where the difference is. So I talked about before, like you need a key. If I want to start an EC2, so for example, this one is called ASL 1 Tech 1. If I want to start a new EC2, I'm not going to create one, but I just want to use the example. Test, I'll just pick an image. Yeah, this is fine. 64-bit micro, and the key, see this key right here. So this is the key I was talking about. And the other aspect of that is the key helps me to protect it so that not anybody can use it. So everything in AWS has some concept of keys. And the other thing I want to look at was just something I saw earlier. Let me look at this real quick before I get back, so I don't go off too many different tangents. So if I want to create a VPC, oh, okay, it's gonna make me do it here. All right, so we don't have to do this here. I was just curious about something. Maybe it'll let me do it. Subnets, all right. Okay, this is what I want to look at. Subnets, so 2A, 2C, 2A, 2B, 2C. So one of the commands that we tried, so we'll see if I got rid of it, so it didn't work. It went up to D. So I just was looking at, this one has only A, B, and C, but if I created a fourth one, it'll be 2A, 2B, 2C, and 2D. So that's all I was looking at, just trying to make sense of something here. But to get back on topic, everything is secured on AWS. Almost everything is secured with keys. And these are keys that are files because you can't physically lock it down. You can't do that. But you can use like a virtual key, kind of like your password, right? So you have a phone, your phone is gonna have a password, or maybe it uses your face, or maybe it uses your thumb, but you need some key. So your phone is protected by the key, and it doesn't matter what the key is, you just have to have one. Some people will be a password, some people will be their phone, some people will be, excuse me, not their phone, some people will be their face, some people will be their thumbprint, will be their eye, right? Like there's some security systems that use eye scans. And so the key part of this is security. That's the point I'm trying to make. So this program here, so this is a free one. Here. And I'm not going to go through all the details of this, but this one's a pretty big deal, because the reason why it's important is because it shows up a lot, and a lot of people don't know how to do it. They don't know how to do this, and this program will do it for you. Yeah, so the SDK, which is what I use to do this, it does this for you, but sometimes you have to, you're trying to do something else, and you need some instructions on how to do it. This is another page. So this sign v4, like I said, it might not make any sense, but it's a project and it might make sense. So let's think the other direction. Let's say it makes sense. So think of it in terms of it making sense, that it will let you verify something that you want to do, because most of these interactions, almost all of them, none of them are face to face. You never see the person who's using the system. You never see the person who's creates the system. You don't. But there has to be trust between the two. So the person who created the system, the person who runs the system, the person who's using the system, you need trust between everybody. So there has to be some way to sign and verify um, that the information that you're sending is valid. So that has to be valid. So, so this is another good example. All right, this is another good example we can try. So let me try this one. This is another good example to try. There's a lot of good examples here. It's pretty interesting. So this one I want to use this one. Actually, if you could hold on for I'll be right back in about 2 minutes. Yeah, I'm back. I'm back. All right, so let's see. All right, so what am I trying to show here? Website, plenty of examples that you can look at. I know internet access and power is it's not perfect right now. It's actually pretty challenging, but I want to show you just like the resources that are available and just how you use it. So the way I'm showing this right now, this is how I have to work. It's not always easy. Sometimes it's very hard, but these are I'm showing you the same tools. Let me actually show show this again. Go to someplace a little bit more. Yeah, go here. All right. So, all right, this is fine. Uh, all right. Okay. Sure, a little bit of budget stuff. This is not, we're not really spending money here. So but I'm just showing, so AWS, they track. So imagine I multiply this. So this is 4 cents, 1 cent. So that's how much they think we're going to spend next month. And most of it was EC2. EC2. EC2, some S3. This was probably storage. All right. So I want to run an example. So we haven't done much with Lambda. But what it says is, what does it say? It says, run code without thinking about servers. You still have to think about servers. I know what they just said, but all right, we don't have any Lambda functions here. All right, so I'm going to talk about this service here and see if we can run a good example of it that I can show. So what is AWS Lambda? So I talk about EC2 a lot. You hear me say EC2, EC2, EC2. And that's it lets you put a computer in the cloud. You know what that means. And the other way of doing these things, so if you want to do an action, if you don't want an entire computer, you can just have somebody else own the computers, but you basically just rent time, not on the computer, but to actually just do an action. So if you do an action, you only get charged for the action. So there's no computer to turn on or turn off. The only time you get charged is if an action happens. So I'll give you an example. A simple one might be get the weather, right? People get the weather all the time. So they want to know whether it's raining, whether it's windy, and you just want to create a service that gives you the weather. That's all you care about. Now, you have a service and it doesn't run all the time. You don't need to know the weather 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You might need to know it in the morning when you wake up, in the afternoon, if you're going out during lunch, on the weekend. So there might be 3 times during the day and maybe twice during the weekend that you check the weather. So you don't use it all the time. So in that kind of scenario, you don't need to have a computer running 168 hours out of the week. It in a way, it kind of doesn't make sense, right? Computer is more like, okay, if you use it 9 to 5 all day long, you can use it anytime. Okay. But another way of doing it is someone says, hey, look, I'm not going to rent you a computer. I'm just going to rent you the time that you spend. So you don't control the computer. You don't get to decide how fast it is. You don't get to decide how much memory it has. You don't get to decide any of that. You just get to decide, okay, what do I want to do? I want to do something. I want to send information on what the weather is. That's all I want to do. For example, this one right here, right? If I do send 1 million requests a month, it's free. Don't charge anything. And the pricing here is kind of interesting. Oh, okay. Yep. All right. So a couple of things. So first, 1 million requests a month, free. They also measure how much information you send per month. So it's how many requests and then the size of the information that you're sending. And they're going to put a price behind that. So 20 cents per 1 million. So if you made 1 million requests, it only costs you 20 cents, which is pretty good. If you're doing it based on size, if you're pushing a lot of information back and forth, then it's going to be $16.67. So there's just different ways to price things. So instead of pricing it on how much memory, how much disk, how fast the CPU is, I'm not pricing on that. I'm pricing it on the amount of information that I transit and then how many transits I do. So I'm weighing two different things. How many times am I making requests and how much information am I sending per request? So those are the two other ways of measuring things. So there are people, for example, they don't need a computer 24 hours a day. They might need it every Friday between 9 and 11 o'clock. That's it. And even with that, they know exactly what they're going to do. They're not going to need it to do everything. They need it to do just one thing. So I just need to do one thing. I'm going to use this one service, and it's called Lamba. It's a much cheaper way of running services. So you can do a lot with Lamba. I use it. I use it now for a service. It runs every night or every day or every night, however you want to measure it, at 4 o'clock in the morning. It does one thing. It gets an email, and then it does something else, or it does two things. Gets the information from the email. So the email is at 4 o'clock in the morning. I run a service. It reads the email at 4:30 in the morning. And then after that, it will make an action. Right? Very simple. So I don't need a whole computer to do that. All right, so I want to run this example. I'm curious as to what happens. Again, we're always checking costs. S3. All right, no buckets here. All right, cool. So I'm going to run this example. Well, let's talk about it a little bit. So again, GitHub, you see who worked on it. Let's look at the history a bit. And there's a lot of stuff that you can do here. I mean, there's a lot. I can look and see every single action. So if you notice, like, there are people's faces, just like I said, just like social media, you see people's faces and names and who worked on what. So mostly it's this one guy, Laren, who's doing a lot of this stuff. And then, yeah, there's somebody else, Jay Schwartzwalder, and some other people start adding information. But you can see it's a team effort. So all users, okay, not everybody did everything here, but enough did. So this is a good team project. It's a good team tool. So this is like, if you're working, you might have one with Mikanson, Rigo, a few other people. you can go in, sign up, and create your own project. You can do that today. Next time I'm going to actually show how to do that. For the next time. All right, so what needs to happen? What needs to happen is I'm going to run this example. So I'm going to go, like I said, go back to my other example. So example code, right? We have example code here. Lambda, right? And now I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to see if I'm missing if I need any other pieces, right? So this requirement. So you might not know all the details of what I'm doing, but think about the English words, right? So I'm going to put, like, you've heard me talk about Python. I'm not going to explain that right now, but you know in English what install means, and you know what requirements means. You know this, right? So even if you don't know what this means, you don't know what this means, you don't know what this means, you say, okay, I see three very clear English words here. I see Python, I see install, I see requirements. Okay, that means I'm going to do an action. That's what install means. And I'm going to do the action on some objects, right? So like a basic English sentence, right? So you have usually a subject, a verb, and an object. So in this case, your verb is install. Your object is the requirements, right? Just the way you guys learned with Miss Carolina. So typically in English, you have subject, verb, object. Sometimes you can get away with verb and object, right? So run to the car or drive the car, right? That's a verb object. So I'm just going to run this, right? Because I want to do this action. I want to do this action. Let's see what happens. I want to see lots of green. I need to see lots of green. All right, so, okay. So nothing's changed because it says I have everything already. So it says if you read the English words, right? So don't be afraid of or be brave about the English words you already know. So requirement already satisfied. Means that everything I'm asking it already has it, which is good. Means I shouldn't have to do anything else. So now I'm going to run this example. There's a few of them. And let's do this. And notice this again, caution. This might result in charges to your AWS account. Now, we have a budget. And the other thing I talked about before was when I talked about Lambda. Excuse me, because I keep moving that window. I'm not sure why. Lambda, remember, I talked about how much it costs, right? So first 1,000,000 requests a month. We're not going to do 1,000,000 requests. Definitely not today. So I'm not worried about how much it is going to cost, right? But it's something you have to be aware of if you don't know it. So it says running tests might result in your Lambda and might result in charges to your AWS account. That's fair. It's a service. We have to pay for it. However, the way it's priced, the way they set up the price is if I do 1,000,000 requests within a month, it's going to be free. And this one is first 400K gigabyte seconds a month. I have to look up the way they do this one is a little bit interesting to me. So 400K. All right, so let me look at this and see if I can understand what the heck this means. So gigabit seconds a month. Yeah, this is interesting math. So if I go, so I guess it means that if I do a certain number of gigabytes per second within a month, as long as those requests are under 1 million. So if I have 1 million requests, I'm gonna pay $16.67. All right. I'll look at this later. The way they have this phrase is a little bit weird to me. All right, so I'm going to run this basic example. So everything I need is there. Let's run this example and see what happens. Didn't do anything. Didn't do anything interesting. So let's take a look at the file. So, of course. Oh, of course. All right, so let me do. All right, let me show this a different way. It's actually the way I should be showing it. Because this is not going to work the way they describe it, but that's okay. I wonder why they did it this way. So I'm going to show a different way of doing this. So this is, I'm going to create a Lambda function. I'm just going to create one. So I'm going to create a function. And I'm going to do it from scratch. I'm going to call this ASL test function. I'm going to delete it afterwards. It doesn't matter, actually. Doesn't matter, but and I'm going to use Python. All right, so I'm not going to do anything fancy with it. I'm just going to create a function, create it in Python. All right, so now I have a function. Now I got to put some code. So if you notice, it's going to create a function, Lambda. And I'm just showing this. You just watch this to see what I'm talking about. I'm going to copy and paste the code. So this, yes, this is going to do. This is a lot more complicated. Not complicated. This is a lot more involved. All right. So yeah, this is going to be an interesting one to actually run. So I'm going to save that. Save this file. And then I want to test it. So it says successfully create the function. All right, so I save this. And then I want to test it. So how do I test it? So I might have to save this for the next one, but let's try it. Let me try it. So let me try. I want to use this example. So event get action. Yeah, so for this one, it should have an example that I can use here. So let me look at the code. Yeah, I was looking for a JSON. So I'm gonna have to write one. They don't have one. Yeah, I'm looking for a file called JSON, but they don't have it here. So let's see if we have time to actually test it, but let me run it again. I'm gonna run this anyway. So then, like I said, I literally have to do this. What I'm showing you right now, I have to do this for my job tomorrow. I had to do it yesterday. I got to do it tomorrow too. So I'm going to use this. This is not going to work, which is fine for now. It's going to complain. Yeah, so it's going to complain. None is not a valid action. So I think that's, let me take a look here. So I think what I have to do is, all right, try this. See me look something up. All right, I don't want to create a basic JSON. Yes. Okay, so I can do something like this. I can do something like this. I can do something like this. So now you got to do things quickly. So I want to test it. Let's see, I'm going to create a bigger text. We call it my event. Right? Yeah, so this. All right, so this is what I want to do. So I want to do. I want to do this. Nope, not that. It's a lot more complicated than I want. Action. Yeah, that's what I want. So I think I can get away with just these two. Action. All right. All right, and then a number. So this number will be 9, which is what I think they're asking me to do. I'll call this 9. And then the action I want is increment. So just take a look at what I'm doing. Like I said, looking at the code is going to help a lot. And I'll save this one. All right, so let me test it. So go to the function again. Get number. Test this. The code. This. I might bring this one up the next time we do it. Code. Like this. I can get it. So I can get rid of this. Screen. Save. Just. All right. So this did what I wanted to do. So, all right. I think, all right. So all I wanted to do, so just to make this very simple, I wanted to create a function that does something very simple. It just adds 2 numbers together, right? I don't need an entire computer to do that. It might be too much. So what do? I create a Lambda function. It does a very simple action, and then it's done. So this action, right? So I have an action. using your English again, our English, that action is to increment, to increase, right? And I want to increase it by a number, okay? And it adds one to that number, and it gives me an answer. So if I say, all I wanted to do is add one to I just wanted to add one to any number I put in, and that gives me 10, right? So very basic, but you can see if you understand how this process works, if you connect that, then it's a lot easier to create stuff that's more complicated. So everything that's complicated is going to be made up of something that's very simple. Today I talked about one of the key core technologies that's used everywhere. I've been using it since 2016, so that's almost 8 years, not quite 8 years, and it's something that's very common. No matter what you're trying to do, if you're in business, no matter what kind of business, if you're doing video games, like they're all using, like they're using more or less the same tools. And so you just should have some understanding of it. And it's pretty easy to at least get online and just take a look. You'll just increase your understanding. So it's 11:50. That's what I have. Rachel, but thank God I'm not on mute. Didn't do that last time. Rachel, can you hear me? Hola, Rachel. Rachel might have stepped away. So I'm going to upload the video as is, but the key thing I want you to take away from this is that we talked about AWS, but we connected some other pieces to it. We talked about GitHub, right? And how people use it. And people use it to get files and get information that you can also reuse yourself, which is what I did, right? Sometimes nobody knows everything. Sometimes you have to look things up and then see what else is available and put that together with what you need. So thank you, everyone. And like I said, I'll try to upload that video today. I don't need to edit it. Should just go straight ahead.